Inside every single computer, there's a ghost. Seriously, it's this strange, almost magical quantum phenomenon that's been both a massive headache and an incredible tool for the engineers building our modern world. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain, figure out what this ghost is and why it's so incredibly important. All right, so to really get this, we've got to start with just how ridiculously tiny and packed modern microchips are. I mean, the processor in the phone you're holding, it doesn't have millions of transistors, it has billions. That's a number that's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. And get this, every single one of those billions of transistors is basically a tiny little electronic switch. We're talking smaller than a virus. For decades, the name of the game has been to just keep making them smaller and smaller. And that relentless shrinking, that's what gives us everything from our smartphones to powerful AI. But what happens when you make things so small that the normal rules of the world just don't apply anymore? I mean, at this tiny, tiny scale, the physics we know, the stuff that governs how a ball flies or how a bridge stands up, it just breaks down. Something way stranger starts to take over. Okay, so let's dive into this shrinking, leaky world. As engineers were pushing the limits, trying to make things ever smaller, they ran into a really weird problem. Their perfect little microscopic switches, well, they started to leak. You see, the heart of all our electronics is this thing called a MOSFET. Just think of it like a tiny gate that you can open or close to let electrons through. Simple, right? But as they made these gates in the little walls that insulate them smaller and smaller, electrons just started appearing on the other side. They were showing up where they had no business being, and it defied all the classical rules. So what was going on? What was causing this bizarre leak? Well, it wasn't a mistake in how they were made. Nope. It was something built into the very fabric of the universe. A purely quantum mechanical effect. It's time to properly meet that ghost in the machine. And this really breaks it down perfectly. Think about it. In our world, the classical world, you throw a ball at a wall. What happens? It bounces off. Every time. 100%. But down in the quantum world, things get weird. An electron isn't just a little speck. It also acts like a wave. And that wave can do something that just seems impossible. This is it. This is quantum tunneling. It's this mind-bending idea where a particle, like one of our electrons, can literally pass through a solid barrier, even though it absolutely doesn't have enough energy to climb over it. It really is like throwing that baseball at the wall and watching it just pop out on the other side. No hole, no damage. It just appears. So how on earth is that possible? Well, you see, an electron's position isn't a single point. It's more like a wave of probability. And when that wave hits a barrier, it doesn't just crash and stop. It decays. It gets smaller. But here's the kicker. If the barrier is thin enough, we're talking just a few atoms thick, that wave doesn't fade all the way to zero. There's still a little bit of it on the other side. And that tiny bit means there's a real non-zero chance that, poof, the electron just shows up over there. Now, for the engineers back in the early 2000s, this wasn't some cool bit of science trivia. It was an absolute nightmare. Quantum tunneling was like the ultimate uninvited guest, crashing the party and about to break everything. This disaster has a name: leakage current. See, inside every transistor, there's this super thin insulating wall, the gate oxide, and its only job is to stop electrons. But as that wall got thinner and thinner down to just a few atoms thick, you guessed it, electrons started tunneling right through it. They were just leaking through, even when the switch was supposed to be completely off. And this wasn't a small problem. This leakage had some really serious side effects. It wasted a ton of power, which is a big reason why older gadgets would lose their battery life even when you weren't using them. It also created a bunch of extra heat, which is the enemy of any microchip. And the big one? It looked like it was going to be a hard wall, a fundamental limit to how much smaller and faster we could make our tech. But, and this is where the story gets really cool, engineers are, incredibly clever, and they realize something. Instead of just trying to fight this quantum ghost, what if they could tame it? What if they could put it to work? They figured out how to turn the villain of the story into the hero. It was all about a shift in thinking. The new rule became, if you can't beat it, use it. If you can't stop the tunneling, then learn how to control it. So they started designing new kinds of devices that didn't just tolerate tunneling, they actually depended on it. They started harnessing that exact same quantum weirdness for some amazing stuff. And this totally new way of looking at things unlocked some incredible tech. We're talking about the flash memory that's in your SSD or your phone right now. We're talking about crazy fast components called tunnel diodes, and even the future of super low power transistors. All of it is built on controlled tunneling. Okay, let's take a quick look at flash memory, because it's the perfect example of this in action. Here's how it works. To store a single bit of data, you apply a jolt of voltage. This literally forces a bunch of electrons to do that quantum tunneling thing right through an insulator and get trapped in a little pen called a floating gate. Then the computer can check, are there trapped electrons there or not? That absence or presence is your 1 or your 0. It's amazing. Every single photo on your phone, every file on your SSD, it's all stored thanks to this perfectly controlled quantum leap. So there you have it. This dual nature of quantum tunneling. This idea that it's both a bug and a feature, a problem to be solved and a tool to be used, that's really what's defining our quantum future. And you can see that this is a constant dance, a cycle of innovation. To fight that bad, unwanted tunneling, they've invented all new materials, so-called high-K dielectrics, that are just better walls against it. And to get more control over the good tunneling, they've totally redesigned the transistor itself, moving from flat 2D designs to these complex 3D structures like FinFETs and gate-all-around. It's a nonstop effort to manage the ghost in the machine. And really, this is the most important thing to take away from all this. The entire way we think about building chips has shifted. We are so far past the days of just fighting against quantum effects. Now, we're actively designing with them. It's become a core part of the toolbox. Which leaves us with a pretty deep final thought, doesn't it? As we keep pushing and shrinking our technology down to the scale of just a handful of atoms, a place where the quantum rules aren't just weird, they're the only rules that matter. Are we just getting better at engineering? Or are we actually starting to learn how to speak the fundamental language of the universe itself?